Alright, so you assholes asked for visuals, so I'm putting up a fucking visual. I'm kidding. I should really work on that, but I just really don't feel like it for these simple fucking rants. This is Funtoo. I am not running Funtoo. There is a reason for this. There are actually multiple reasons for this. I do have Funtoo installed on my other drive, but it doesn't work. So Uh, here's kind of what Funtoo is if you've never heard of it before. Funtoo is Gentoo, but with several they call them advantages, but that's very how would you call it? Situational for it to be called an advantage. Basically, uh, they remove use flags. You don't use flags in Funtoo. Somebody else creates the use flags for you, and they put them in their own list, and you have to follow their list. For what else? Instead of choosing your graphics driver, uh, the installation process is a bit different. So instead of like choosing a profile for desktop or whatever, they have that, but their only really supported one is GNOME and XFCE kinda and Mate kinda. Cinnamon just absolutely not. They say that they don't support Wayland, but they also have an option to have GNOME with Wayland. However, it's GNOME 3, not GNOME 4. But they do this because they have a much smaller team than Gentoo, where there's so many less volunteers, so they need to have everybody on a unified system. So you lose all of the customization of Gentoo, and you also lose System D. But what you gain in return supposedly is your system should be more maintainable and easier to maintain. Now, I have not found this to be the case because Gentoo is already pretty maintainable. Like adding the use flag is no big deal. But the problem is when you have this totally unified setup, some people's systems are going to break, and if you don't have the option to fix it, they won't be able to run it, which is what I found myself running into. Is I've got a particular AMD setup and it just doesn't work. People assume I have a laptop or I have Nvidia or something. That's usually how it works. If there's a problem, it's because I have Nvidia. I don't own a Nvidia card. Um, but because of the smaller team, their idea is that if you have less volunteers, you should or you could ideally have everybody run the exact same system, and then you can test things that way. But I'm not finding it. I think that their methods just aren't or are kind of broken fundamentally, so I don't see there being any way to fix these bugs. But during the install, I ran into every issue under the sun, so far I can't really say that they've done a successful job at it, at making the system work on everybody's hardware, which is what it's supposed to do. But when I'm running into all the shit that I don't even run in on regular Gen 2, that's I don't know. I don't see it working on my system, but I'm gonna keep trying just because supposedly you can fix it. But I asked a developer, he said he had no idea. I asked somebody else, they threw me a suggestion, but it didn't work. I did find out, however, though, that my drive changed, so I had to redo my FS tab. But that was my fault. I didn't follow the guide correctly. But their GNOME Stage 3 tarball doesn't seem to work right. I don't really want to run GNOME 3. That just doesn't sound fun. But I don't want to. I can't even get GNOME to run, which is what they're supposed to support. So I doubt I'm gonna get Mate working. But my main issue was when I initially turn on my computer and it boots. It'll boot, but I get kicked to a TTY instead of GDM, even though everything in my configuration is correct, which they say I shouldn't have to edit anyways. But because of this, though, I can't use my keyboard. For some reason, it's at a TTY and Display Manager fails to start, and I'm at a TTY, but my keyboard, even the caps lock, doesn't work on my keyboard for some reason. So suppose hopefully if I were to unplug and replug my keyboard, maybe that would work. But I've got my keyboard kind of wired in such a way that it's hard to access, and I don't feel like doing that. But I've got my mixins. They instead of using like make.conf stuff. Instead, you add these mix-ins, which basically do the same thing, but they're much more limited in scope. Where if you wanted plus GNOME, it would add the GNOME mix-ins, which are like their profiles, and then you would have, or like subparts to a profile. Oh, and I forgot to mention one of the other things that's cool that they do is they optimize their packages for specific arches. So whereas on Gentoo I don't bother with optimization because I just want to use the bins. Theirs they would optimize it specifically for Zen 3 or Zen 2 or whatever you have. So that's a cool idea. The Funtoo seems like a really fun idea. I don't see it working in practice. So if you're gonna use Gentoo, just use Gentoo. Funtoo doesn't seem to have really any real world advantage unless you're a developer, because it just helps streamline testing. But for an end user, I'd say Gentoo is just the better option. There's really no use for this. But again, that may just be because I can't get it to fucking work, so we'll find out. Right now, though, I'm emerging WebKit, and it fucking sucks. I hate WebKit, but whatever. Alright, I think that's enough ranting. Thanks.